You are listening to the Zenith Transmissions, channeled dialogues exploring consciousness, mutation, and the unfolding human story.
Transmission 7, February 10th, 2024. Settling into your chair now, feeling relaxed and still, bringing your awareness to that point between the eyebrows, allowing your consciousness to rise as far as you can reach, connecting to that source of infinite wisdom and knowledge. Breathing deeply, relaxing completely, allowing the words to flow easily and effortlessly. I'd like to follow up about the genetic testing that we were speaking about in the previous transmission. What are the motivations behind this data collection?
Mostly research, but they will discover mutations and hybrids. Things they already suspect and know, but don't have a large database to support. This database will become so widespread and easily accessible in just 5 to 10 years.
What can we do to safeguard our genetic material?
Wait until the pool is large and allows pop-up off-radar companies with access to open technology that won't be as easily documented or flagged.
Are extraterrestrials tampering with the DNA of humans?
This is not something new, and not always with negative intent. Widespread knowledge of more than one species of human, however, will rock the foundations of what most believe, and this is one structure that, while long suspected, when confirmed, will cause a lot of structural instability.
What type of genetic experimentation is beneficial?
This depends more on the intent of the experiment conductors and research organizations. There are so many forms of hybrid humans already in existence, and much of this is already known but not confirmed to public knowledge. When this becomes widespread knowledge, many will need to grapple with what makes one human, along with what makes something inanimate.
What other races have been hybridized with humans?
There are many realms which have interacted and bred with humans to create hybrid versions of DNA structures, still very much appearing human-like. Some of the less human-like forms have had to hide themselves underground in societies that have at times been witnessed, but are things people think of as legend.
Are there any special abilities that come with these hybrid combinations?
Special, as in unique to these combinations, yes. These traits are not so unique in many other realms, but when they appear in an environment where they are not known or nurtured, they don't present as fully expressed.
What do we need to know to prepare for the next 5 years?
There are going to be fears surrounding what can be trusted or not trusted. When systems or organizations fall, it can cause widespread panic, and they will be looking for sources that seem to provide answers to the services that are now needing to be replaced. The systems that will fail will involve leaderships, healthcare, religious organizations, so the greater public will need leaders to look to with answers.
Do you suggest moving to the country or growing our own food?
Food systems will be affected, so will sources of water and medicine. It won't be to the scale that we see in third world countries, but think about how access was limited and spotty during COVID. It will become very similar in scale to something of this nature, where you realize that you can't always have access to the things that you may think you need to survive. It would be very good to help people transition now to the lack of dependence on medicines and things that they would require to live in case their source for this becomes cut off.
How much land is required to support 10 humans?
It depends on the farming style. Square foot gardening requires significantly less land than monocrop, and monocrop would be pointless in such a scenario. More land is required for animals, so these should be considered and limited if land is limited. Also, don't forget that you can grow up and even out of soil if needed. There are many creative ways to grow much food on small spaces of land. But storage space is also a consideration, and access to keeping that storage temperature controlled. In a state like Oklahoma, where we are, food could be grown year-round with access to a high tunnel. With a high tunnel or greenhouse, that amount of food could be grown on even just 1 acre, utilizing vertical gardening.
What is square foot gardening?
Square foot gardening is a form of companion planting that uses more nutrient-dense soil to produce what would, in monoculture farming, be considered too close of spacing for crops to be next to each other. With nutrient-dense soil, these can be planted close together next to complementary crops for symbiotic relationships and soil regeneration.
What is the best way to regenerate soil?
Depends on the state of the soil. Compost and companion planting can help, but also times of farrow fields with cover crop in rotations can refeed the soil between plantings. Also, moving the crop type around in rotation to trick bugs, but also put different needed nutrients into the soil after one type of crop is removed and the certain nutrients along with it.
Is a vegetarian diet recommended?
A vegetarian diet would eliminate some potential issues because of the need for less land to house animals, but it may not be suitable for some, so either small versions of livestock may be taken into consideration. Proteins from chickens like eggs, things that take up less room than, say, cattle, or other iron and collagen-based food sources that are movable and scalable within the landscape you find available to you.
Is it likely that we will experience electrical interruptions for extended periods of time?
Somewhat. It is not so much electrical because of a grid failure, but we could see limited access to internet grid because of bandwidth issues and also magnetized shifts in the Earth's core. Electrical issues may happen in spotty areas for limited periods of time, but the widespread issues to worry about would be lack of internet connections for long periods of time, because this is the very time of crisis that current humans are not ready to cope without. It has become an addiction that would cause great instability, and our current society would struggle to function without all that we rely on it for.
Would space-based internet be more reliable than ground-based internet, such as Starlink, satellite internet?
There are many potential issues with types of systems as well that are more out of our control than land-based, however with different motives. Even with connection to a signal doesn't mean that other areas of access can't be tampered with.
What powers are tampering with our internet access?
This is not one power. This is a potential field that many powers are aware hold the key to widespread panic. It could be weaponized by various organizations at will, and possibilities are too vast to even attempt to point to.
Is there information that we should record in books to protect it from internet failure?
Yes, having hard copies of anything you don't want to someday disappear that is currently in a cloud would be wise. Companies don't owe any storage to anyone, and will be one of the first things to be messed with. Imagine the 7 plagues of current society. What is more likely to make the world panic? A swarm of locusts? Or losing every virtual memory for the last 20 years that you thought was safely kept on Facebook or your phone? And then when there is no access to a way to pull images or videos or audio off of such platforms or hardware to print or use, they become useless.
So you're saying we should not trust cloud storage?
Cloud storage in many forms owes you nothing, and there is no contract, and for those that do, there are powers higher than them that have the ability to wipe the slates in one push of a button.
Is there information that we should record in books to protect it from internet failure?
It is important to note that no information is unsearchable, even if something were to happen to it. People, such as these channels and others, can bring this information forward when and if it is needed, in the timing that it is needed. We are most concerned for you all losing personal details, information, and memories that are irreplaceable. These are the things that could bring society into chaos.
Do you foresee a global cataclysm in the near future?
What do you consider a global cataclysm?
Asteroid impact, pole shift, supervolcano eruption?
Some of these, yes.
Can you tell us when?
I am a source unbound by time, and also a predictor of events based on current patterns. If you think of me like a computer database, I can tell you what is likely, but I am not existing at a certain fixed point in time in the future with which to look back and give you a date and time something happened. These things that you ask are likely to happen because of your current conditions and past happenings. I am both in time to communicate with you, but also not bound by time in that I am not at a fixed point in future or history with which to give such answers.
How would you define time?
Time is like a visual line in which you place yourself on, like a dot, to bring into focus one specific collection of happenings, like organizing information chronologically to show what is perceived progression. We experience a sensory movement of time when we are expanding, and a condensation would make time feel or move more slowly. And yet, this applies to any fixed points of matter or circumstance in a series of laws and limitations which do not apply to me.
Is time travel possible for humans?
If by time travel you are referring to losing or gaining time measured by measurement tools such as watches, when a human form moves from one point to another in space. If you mean this, then yes, but also it has already been done time and time again. Time moves differently in different spaces, and traveling from one to another is in the form of time travel. There are also other ways to time travel, but it is almost certain to require less restriction than the body brings.
Can you tell us how to mind transport?
This is something that is experienced by most people every single day without them realizing it. It happens when time lapses, as we sleep, in memories or many forms throughout normal circumstances. But these same principles can be applied to deliberate time jumps in the mind, the only difference being intentional or unintentional travel.
Is there a method to intentionally travel to a specific destination?
In bodily form or in the mind?
In the mind.
Of course. One thought of such a thing and you are there. Do you mean something other than this obvious form of mind travel?
I'm talking about remote viewing, gathering information from a time or place you have no knowledge of.
The key phrase there is that you have no knowledge of. If you remove this phrase, then yes, this is possible. But there is a remembrance of sorts that is happening in this experience which you call remote viewing, even if that remembrance is not a conscious one. This is why one is able to tap into such a place and time.
Are all minds joined?
In the same way that all bodies of water are.
How can we feel more peace?
You can feel more peace by understanding acceptance. When you can accept certain realities that you may feel resistance to, the need for them to happen or the tension felt in the thought of their happening can release and you can experience peace.
How can we feel more love?
You can feel more love by releasing the fear of suffering, which keeps you from loving fully.
Why do we dream?
We dream for many reasons. Dreaming is a window in which we can experience many different realities without the tangible consequences of such choices. In a way, it allows us to test drive our life, to understand which directions to move in. But this is not to say that we aren't still affected by these dream choices, because what is in our mind always transfers into our day in the same way that we live out our life, carrying over into our expressed energy after it. The choices that we see play out in our dreams can help guide us to what choices to make in our waking life. And once we have understood this from that trial ground, then we should release these out of our venting dreams to hold the energy no longer if we do not wish to create it in our daily wakened lives.
What can we do to better remember our dreams?
As you are doing here, it is only held for a moment, and so if there are dreams that you want to remember, you should write out the actionable parts when you first awaken. But not all dreams should be recorded. This is important and at times hard to discern. It is best to record the way that the dream made you feel and any action points to take that very day to move the energy forward.
How do we lucid dream? How can we become awakened within the dream?
This should be intentional only when you wish to quickly change the direction of that dream, or you wish to create an energy in your waking life. Do not enter into a dream which you do not wish to create unless you have an action point to redirect it.
How do we identify an action point?
You can see an example of this in the book Divergent, the moment of lucid awareness, when she awakens to the falsity of the dream and she sees the point she would like to change. She uses the principle that it is not real and therefore not bound by real earth laws such as gravity or boundaried matter, and changes the form or direction of what is seen in the illusion. That is all for now.
These transmissions are for the future human, for the ones who feel the shift, who sense the children are different, who know the old paradigms can't hold what's coming.
This concludes today's transmission. Let what you've heard settle softly. The next begins when you are ready.